Welcome, everybody. This is High Side, Low Side, Season 8, Episode 9. My name is Zack. I'm joined, as always, by my buddy Spurg. Our topic of discussion today, a used bike dream garage shopping spree. Our guest will be our lovely colleague, Mr. Patrick Garvin. Here's how it's going to work. We each get 20,000 theoretical dollars and a couple hours on Craigslist to come up with our best three-bike garage. Also on the program, an analysis of federal crash statistics and motorcycle safety, as well as adapting your riding style after a move. Before we do all that, of course, we need to take a quick moment to recognize our sponsors. First of which is Motul. Motul makes high-quality oil, lubricants, and cleaners, as you all know. High Side, Low Side makes a high-quality podcast, as you all know. If you're a real true fan of High Side, Low Side, you should combine those things and purchase some Motul products for your motorcycle or other machines to support our podcast. You can do all that at RevZilla.com/Motul. That's RevZilla.com/MOTUL.
We'd also like to welcome Quadlock to the High Side, Low Side sponsorship family. Quadlock was already the preferred motorcycle cell phone mount for High Side, Low Side, but now we're making it official, and we are excited to have them on board. So you might be asking yourself, why is it that you and Zack prefer Quadlock mounts? Well, Zack and I have both lost the little cameras in our fancy cell phones to vibration, and Quadlock has these really cool little anti-vibration dampers that you can use to make sure that your cell phone stays safe and that camera functions when you want to take all those nice selfies of yourself when you get to where you're going. So to learn more about all of Quadlock's unique mounts, you can learn more at quadlockcase.com. And to check out the entire line of Quadlock products, you can head over to RevZilla.com/quad-lock. And while you're over there on RevZilla.com, just keep in mind that the new Airbag Save campaign is up at RevZilla.com/airbags. May is Motorcycle Safety Month, and while the good folks here at RevZilla always want you to be riding safely, this May we are kicking off the Airbag Save campaign to help educate riders on the newest technology available for motorcyclist safety. So to learn more about the world of airbag technology, check out Airbag Save at RevZilla.com/airbags. Now, on with the show.
Okie dokie, everybody. Off we go. Another high side, low side journey just at the beginning. If we didn't throw enough URLs and links at you so far, we have one more for you, because as Spurgeon mentioned, it is Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month in May. And Spurgeon, our good friend Lance the Silver Fox Oliver, has written a lovely article about digesting federal crash statistics and motorcycles. Tell the ladies and gentlemen a little bit about that.
Right. So the recent National Highway Traffic Safety Administration release of 2022 crash statistics came out, and Lance kind of dove in and pulled out three main factors to consider. Now, you might be saying,
right? 2023?
No, this is 2022.
It's 2022?
And then there's estimates included in that for 2023. So
I apologize.
The data is always a little bit behind. So this is the newest data that was released. And really, Lance kind of digested it down into three main takeaways, which was drinking, distraction, and then he put it as dozers, but he has some speculation around larger vehicles on the road. So that's kind of what the article was about. The article is over on Common Tread. Drinking, distraction, dozers, three takeaways from the federal crash statistics, if you want to check the article out. And I think without any further ado, we can kind of just use our 3-minute time allotment for Not the News to jump right in and kind of discuss some of the things that were discussed, or discuss some of the things that Lance discussed in the article, is what I meant to say.
So, start the timer. First, I'd like to clarify the dozers, as you said. Lance is more talking like bro-dozers rather than bulldozers. Because one of the things he points out in the article is that in 1992, the best-selling car in the United States was a Ford Taurus. And he goes on to point out that if chances are if you get hit by a Ford Taurus, you'd kind of flip up onto the hood, whether you're a pedestrian or a cyclist or motorcyclist, whatever. In 2022, the best-selling car in the United States was a Ford F-Series pickup truck, which has a significantly taller hood and therefore makes it more dangerous for people that are not inside the vehicle. And this is something that has been talked about a lot in automotive and motorcycle journalism. But just a clarification there of Lance's use of the word dozer. And I think it's a fair call out. Yes, Birch?
Absolutely. I do think going back to the two main points that I found in the article to be the most interesting was drinking and riding. We are still our own worst enemy as motorcyclists. One of the leading cause of deaths amongst motorcyclists still ends up being inebriated riding. Whether it's I'm just going to stop and have a beer or whatever that turns into after the fact. So just keep that in mind if you're out there.
Yes.
Just ride your motorcycle and just separate the drinking aspect. But the one that I really wanted to touch on, and I actually got into this in the comment section a little bit on the article, was distracted driving. Where I currently moved to just outside of Philadelphia, I'm commuting up and down the old 476 turnpike, and the billboards now are anti-gaming billboards. And I had to do a little bit of research on this, but apparently a new trend of distracted driving is people that are playing video games on their cell phones or other devices whilst also driving a vehicle. I find that to be absurd. But that is now what we are up against as
there are
motorcyclists.
billboards on there are billboards that tell people not to do it.
I will try and safely get a photo of the billboard. I will pull my vehicle over and not use my phone while driving, but I'll see if I can get a picture of the billboard to include in this podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's ironic, right? Because billboards are already distractions on the road. And then there's a billboard being like, hey, if you're looking at this, good.
You shouldn't be looking at a video game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what a mess. What a mess. Yeah. But anyway, those are the call outs from Lance. There's obviously more information in the article if you go to commenttrade at RevZilla.com. But yeah, I just reiterate the same thing. If you just don't drink, you save, statistically, you save yourself a lot of trouble. And by gosh, if you know someone who is playing a video game while they're driving, you need to tell them that they're part of the problem.
Well, I think it was interesting because one of the commenters gets into it, and Lance hits on it a little bit in the article. Like, oop, buzzer went off.
Okay, buzzer's off.
If you're drinking and driving, and a police officer pulls you over, they can test for that, right? But the distracted driving has been proven in some cases to be as dangerous as drinking and driving. But it's so much harder to prove, and that's what they're running into. And they kind of talked about that in the article, that unless a police officer pulls up alongside of you,
right,
and actually sees you doing the video game or the cell phone thing,
right,
it's a very hard statistic to prove.
Indeed. Well,
you know what gets me more than any of that is people driving in the passing lane. As somebody that has turned into a power commuter over the past few weeks, and I'm cruising at a comfortable 10 miles an hour
to
speed limit
yep,
in the left lane, and I'm coming up upon these people that are just parked there at 55 miles an hour.
Ugh.
Like, if I were a police officer, those are the tickets that I'd be writing from dawn until dusk. Anybody driving in the left lane, I think I do this like once a season on a high side, low side. It is illegal. The left lane is for passing. If you are just driving, get in the right lane. If you are passing, get in the left lane and stay the hell out of my way. I'm done.
Also, while you're at it, stay off Spurgeon's lawn.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. There was a dog pooping in my yard the other day, and this is my new suburban hell. I had to go out there and wave a newspaper at him because they didn't clean it up. I don't mind if your dog goes to the bathroom in my yard, but do not. This is an entirely other podcast.
Probably the same people playing their video games while they're driving, letting people.
Don't even get me started.
Okay. Well, speaking of video games, pickup trucks, and dog poop, let's bring in Patrick Garvin, shall we, and talk about this dream garage.
Patrick, welcome back to the podcast. Last time we had you on, we were talking about the fact that we weren't sure if you were the a-hole or not. Now we're here to talk about used motorcycles that are the biggest bargains that we can find. So are you the a-hole or are you the bargain shopper? I mean, which do you prefer?
Or are you both?
Man, I think I can be both, and I hope to redeem the embarrassment from the engine sound game. I had such a nice track record going, and I came on here and shit the proverbial bed.
Well, hopefully, I mean, the lesson that you learned was that you were just overconfident. You were cocky.
Oh, so confident.
Yeah.
And now my soul has been crushed.
I don't know if anyone has such a polarizing reputation as you do in the engine sound guessing game. Either like dead nuts on the money, or like so confident that you missed by 80 years.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
Long,
Okay.
yeah.
If you don't know what we're talking about, for those of you that maybe this is your first episode of High Side, Low Side, go back to earlier in season 8 to the Am I an A-hole episode and listen to the engine sound guessing game where Patrick came out hot and didn't even ask for one of the hints. And just said, I'm gonna guess.
I got
sound.
this.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will get to yet another engine sound guessing game later in the episode. For now, we are jumping into the main topic here, which is our used bike Craigslist shopping spree. So here's how it's going to work, everybody. You're not allowed to pick bikes in your own garage. You got to start fresh, clean, empty garage. You each get $20,000 to spend on Craigslist. It has to be on 3 motorcycles. Sorry, can't get 2, can't get 4. These are the rules that we've been issued, so that's the deal. It has to be used, has to be from a local area, a reasonable distance away. No air freight from Singapore. I know how you get, Spurgeon. And yeah, so the way we're gonna run through it is we're gonna start with each of our highest price bikes, and then the sort of mid-price bikes and low-price bikes. I assume there's going to be lots of diversity in what people chose as far as disciplines of motorcycles and genres. I also assume that Patrick's picks will be very zany, and everyone will be disappointed at how bland mine are. Spurgeon, did I miss anything?
Well, you said Craigslist, and we did decide that like we could use Facebook Marketplace or Cycle
Yeah,
Trader.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Totally true. Totally fair.
Also, I would just like to say to the audience, this is an exercise that might end up costing me money because I found some picks that I'm actually now considering. And
I know. I did the same thing.
Yep.
And it was actually, it was pretty hard too, because like I tried very hard to stay within the letter of the rules on this one. Like I got to a point where I had narrowed it down to like $20,100, and I was like, I can negotiate $100 off of one of these motorcycles, but I didn't do it. I reworked my entire pick to make sure I was under 20 grand.
I also would like to call out the 20 grand number because we realize that many of you might not have $20,000 in cash that you're just going to spend on a motorcycle or multiple motorcycles,
including us in real life.
The reason that we set it up this way is in the hopes that we will find that by splitting $20,000 across 3 motorcycles, we will hit various strata of various price brackets, if you will, of motorcycle, and hopefully we'll speak to more of you all, the listener, individually, because there'll be some cheap bikes and some expensive bikes. And so just to be clear, I know we act and seem like wealthy podcasters, and we are, but I would just like to just point out that that's something we're self-conscious about.
Another thing to note is that these are all bikes that we have found for sale ourselves in the United States right now. So if you are in the market for a used motorcycle and you're one of those old curmudgeon-y people sitting around being like, I can't find a good deal on a motorcycle at all these days, everything's so expensive, there's some great deals out there. And hopefully, even if these have already sold by the time this podcast goes up, it will inspire you to go out and maybe it's time to put a new used motorcycle in your garage.
Maybe. Okay. Without any further adieu, Patrick Garvin. Let's dive into Patrick Garvin's first pick. This is the most expensive of the 3 motorcycles that Patrick Garvin picked. Drum roll, please. I'm clicking on the link, and we are sharing it with you, the audience, now.
What did you find?
Well, oddly enough, I found a bike that I currently own. And it's probably my favorite bike. And for a screaming deal. It actually shook me a little bit because I'm like, is my bike only worth this much money?
It's the worst nightmare.
Tell everyone what it is, Spurgeon. Don't leave them all hanging.
It's a Patrick found a 2022 KTM 890 Adventure R, and Patrick found it for the screaming low price of $89.99 in Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, it's about
$9,000 ADVR. That's pretty good.
About a six-hour drive for me, and this is the exact motorcycle that is my daily, pretty much. I have a handful of motorcycles. This is my go-to bike, and I'm like, well, this is easy. Like, this is, the bike that I want. I checked, even like Kelly Blue Book trade is about $1,500 higher than this guy wanted. So who knows? Right. Maybe it's a messy divorce. Maybe it's maybe he really needs to find a Nissan Maxima SR.
Who knows? You can never tell. Maybe he just wants to find a riding buddy. We don't know.
Yeah,
don't know.
don't know.
I don't
But
know.
that was too hot of a potato not to to jump on.
Let's
Also,
pause.
interesting,
Pause for 1 second so that we
Okay.
can let the audience in on the joke. Producer Chase,
They don't care
is
about the Nissan
shopping
Maxima.
for
It's a
Nissan
throwaway
Maxima.
comment. Nobody cares. No one needs to know that Chase is shopping for a Maxima. It doesn't matter. I think it's interesting. We said no bikes in your garage, and this is an interesting thing, Patrick, that you've gone straight to replace a bike in your garage because that's how much you love your garage, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna stray from what I want. This is, first of all, it's super fun, but I'm like, I want what I want. I mean, this is man, and the deal was there. I wasn't looking for one.
Okay, fair enough. You just stumbled over it. So tell people why this is a good deal. Why is $9,000 a good deal for a 2022 KTM 890 Adventure R? What are we talking about for MSRP? What are the options on this bike? Like, why is this such a steal? And you mentioned the Kelly Blue Book, but aside from that,
yeah, basically, I think it's about I would say the bike, and Spurg might be a little more dialed into this. The bike probably really retails. If you're going to go buy a used one off of a dealership floor, you're probably looking more in the $12,000 range.
Oh no, it's much more than that now.
More than that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. The trade-in value was even more. So it was just a good deal. Now, I was looking for an adventure bike, and I did have another one in the same price range. I thought I would end up, because I knew I wanted an adventure bike. I ride them too much, not to put another one in the garage.
Sure.
But I thought it would be like an 1190 or maybe even a 990 or something like that. I thought I would get an older one. And I did actually find a 2016 1190 for $9,500, but that was actually in my holster of bikes until I stumbled across this. And I was like, wow, so I know I want this.
If you were to go out and buy a brand new 2020, let's say 2023 leftover 2024 KTM 890 Adventure R. Now, first of all, you get the new blue tank, which frankly, it's a sin to non-rally owners anyway.
That's a sore subject.
Yeah, don't even get me started on that.
But
that's entirely
more to the point. It's like 15.8 or something.
15.2 to 15.8, depending on where you're looking for a new one. So the bike that Patrick found is almost half off, and there's really like not any huge significant changes. I know that there's been some styling changes and things like that, but for like you're getting 90% of the same bike for half
and
off.
16,000 miles on this bike. That's not bad. I mean, it's not ultra low, but like that's not bad.
No, and it looks to be in pretty good condition. It's going to need some tires for sure, but you can't like really sneeze at that.
So I actually tried to do the same thing that Patrick did, which was I had tried to find an adventure bike in this price range, and I was actually going back and looking at 1090s and 990s just like Patrick did, because I wasn't able to find any 890s in my area that were sub $10,000. I too have an 890 in the garage. I too was thinking about this the exact same way that Patrick was, where it's like, I'm just going to replace it with the bike that I have and that I want and that I enjoy. I couldn't find anything that was reasonable. So I actually went in a completely different direction entirely with my picks, but I commend you for finding a $9,000 890. It's a great deal if you're living in the Denver area.
Yeah, I immediately was like, well, should I go buy? And I mean, I don't need another one, but this is like, it's on sale.
The one deal that I did find in Illinois, and I'm trying to find, I got so many tabs open on my screen right now. But in the course of my shopping, I had tried to find, I was mixing and matching different combinations of bikes that I felt would scratch all of my itches. And the smokingest bargain deal that I could find was a 2017 BMW R1200 RS fully loaded for $5,900. Now, high mileage, about 67,000 miles on it, but it comes with 2 years left on a full transferable dealership warranty, and it's a BMW Boxer twin. You got another 60,000 miles to go. So I felt that if you are in the Des Plaines, Illinois area, Des Plaines, Illinois, you should be checking out a 2017 R1200 RS for sale. Smoking deal.
Yeah, $5,900. I found, to your point about adventure bikes, Patrick, I found myself in a weird situation where I first started looking for ADV bikes, and I was like, I saw a Tenere 700, Yamaha Tenere 700 for like 11 grand or something like that. And my first instinct was like, wow, that's a great, that's a lot of bike for 11 grand, like 11 2. Sweet. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wait a second, that bike has 800 miles on it and is from last year. It's basically new. That's how much they cost new. And I think this whole shopping experience really shifted my, like, it made me realize some new bikes are pretty expensive new, and some new bikes are actually a pretty good deal new. You know what I mean? It shifted my perspective when I was only shopping for new bikes, and then I would see a bike that was basically new at MSRP, and I'd be like, that seems like a good deal.
I had actually gotten, I would say I got hit with a bunch of Tenere ads from a dealership where they're selling 2023 leftovers for sub $10,000. And I was like, now so for the listeners out there, we did make a rule that we weren't allowed to buy new bikes as part of this. We are only used bikes, but like, I think it bears mention that there are some smoking deals to be had out there on leftover models if you're looking.
Yeah, and the other thing I went through is like for my most expensive bike, I was like, this has to be something that's the kind of slam down. It's got to work for me. I don't want to take a flyer kind of on it. And I've kind of played the game before as far as like if I could just own one bike, I always come back to an ADV bike just because of the versatility of it. Like I can get on it, I can ride across the country and never touch dirt and be completely happy, or I can ride all the trails in my backyard in the Black Hills. So I was like, I immediately gravitated to look for an ADV bike first.
Sure.
And I was just lucky enough to land on the 890.
Yeah, fair enough.
Zach, I think what is your top pick? Let's pivot over to you. Yeah.
You want to talk about my pick next?
Yeah. So Patrick went with an adventure bike, an 890 for $9,000. Great pick. I like it already. Zach, what are you coming in with? Top pick, most expensive bike that you picked in your garage.
I found a 2017 BMW R1200 GS with 16,000 miles on it for 12 grand. Now, it seems exorbitant to spend 12,000 of my $20
over half your budget on one motorcycle.
I know, but I got shopping for big GSs, and it was just like I found some steals. Like I found some GSs for $9,000, for $8,000 that had more miles on them. They were a little bit older, and like didn't seem. I was sort of like, yeah, I can live with that. Like I've ridden a 1250 GS with 40,000, 60,000 miles on it, and they feel good. They feel tight. I think I don't have any problem with high miles on that bike. But then as you'll see, my other two bikes kind of fell into place, and I was like, I don't know. I'm gonna spend big on my high price bike because it feels like it's worth it. And I just feel like it's, whether you want to go like across the country or down a dirt road or across town, it's just, for me, someone my size and my riding background and ability, it's just tough to beat a big GS.
So so just so I'm clear, Zach, you found it's a 2017. It's the Rally Edition.
It is the Rally Edition, the spicy paint, and
you got full complement hard bags that come with it.
Yeah.
Yes, aluminum bags come with it.
New tires, new battery, 18,000 mile service just completed. All you have to do is ride this thing back from apparently San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego is like an hour and a half away
super
from
easy. Yeah,
easy peasy. It has some kit on there that I don't really want, but like that's fine, whatever. And I'm very familiar with the model. I'm familiar with the engine. This generation I think was pretty good. It was sort of like before some of the sort of more modern display options.
This was before the shift cam timing heads.
Correct. Before shift cam, which like shift cam's nice, but I don't need it if I'm being perfectly honest. And it has the older dash. It has like the little 2-color LCD dash with the analog tachometer or analog speedo. I think analog tachometer. So it doesn't have the new TFT color display, which is like the TFT is kind of nice. But I remember the old dash. I like the old dash. It's fine. It's good. And I just feel like I just feel like it's a good buy, and it's like it's $3,000 or $4,000 more than I need to spend to get in the saddle of a GS, but it just seems like it's in pristine condition.
So,
and like,
I want to just say, quick pause here for those of you listening on the podcast. We are going to do we're going to try and do a pretty good job of actually showing pictures of these bikes, showing the actual ads that we have and that we found.
Yes.
One of the things you can't see if you're listening so I'm going to paint you a picture with my words, is that this ad was posted 29 days ago. The ad says $12,000 OBO. Patrick Garvin, if you're reading this ad and you see that it was posted 29 days ago and you see the letters OBO, and for our newer riders in the audience that have maybe never bought a used motorcycle before, what does this tell you about the motorcycle?
$1,000 off.
At least. Or best offer.
Yeah.
So at the time of posting this, old Peter down in San Diego was willing to take an offer on this, but now it's 30 days. Zach, what are you going to offer Peter for this $12,000 motorcycle?
I don't know. I hadn't gotten that far, man. We had some parameters, and I worked inside the parameters. I didn't. For what it's worth, none of my shopping was based on I'm going to talk this person down, because that's a slippery slope. You can talk a big game all you want. You can be like, oh, it's listed for 13, but like I'm going to get him down 12.5, and then I'm going to get the other one down $200, and then I'm going to be under the $20,000 limit. I just played by the rules.
No, I get you.
And if I can save $1,000 or $2 and take Peter to the cleaners on this this GS, then yeah, I mean, if you could get that bike for 10 grand, that would be.
I think you show up with an 89 S10, a cooler of beer, and $8 grand. What are we talking about here?
I think my pick is significantly less interesting than Patrick. Patrick's is interesting because he's replacing the bike from his current garage. I think it's brilliant. Mine is not terribly interesting. It's just it's pretty generic pick to pick a big GS as your sort of like marquee.
But it's also can't miss. I mean, you're not going to be like, man, I don't really like that. But you can't not like it. It's just going to do everything great.
It is.
So it's also a can't miss. So even though you're spending like most of your money on that, it's money well spent. It's safe. You're not going to be disappointed in that bike.
Not a risk. It's not a risk.
Right.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, Spurge, let's jump into your top pick so we can feel better about ourselves, Patrick.
So I honestly surprised myself because I was originally looking at adventure bikes. I too found some bargains on GSs. I was looking at like replacing my KTM with a 1090, and ultimately what I ended up doing for a lot of this was going back and looking at like bucket list bikes that I've never owned and then trying to find them. And then being really surprised with how proud some of these people are of these bikes that I could have bought years ago for like $4,000 and what they're asking for now. So
tell everyone what you did. I'm looking at the picture now. Oh my God.
So am I.
My top pick is a 2006 BMW R1200S for $11,500. And this is a bike that you could have gotten, I would say, for maybe $6,000. A couple years ago, and to be fair to the yellow Greensboro one that I found, I found a couple anywhere between like $8,900 up to like there was some dude that was asking like $16,000 for one, and I was like, kiss my ass. But this one is a 2006. It's the yellow one. I believe 2006 was the first year of production. It's got the Olin suspension on it. It's got the bags. The yellow one was the one that I wanted. For those of you that aren't sure what we're talking about, the R1200S was the boxer engine, but in like a sport bike. A sport bike
the
that you could put
undertail
bags
exhaust
on.
and like sportier handlebar placement, and it was sort of like a.
Is that a single-sided swing arm?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Fancy.
It's a. I mean, I was gonna say it's a sexy bike. It's as BMW boxers go. It's about as kind of like sleek and suave and cool as they get. Just about like for a street bike, I think. Arguably, it's a cool bike,
and it's super clean. I think it says it's maintained by a BMW Master Tech. The thing looks in the pictures almost new.
Yeah. So this is where this game got to be a dangerous proposition for myself as a loving husband and a soon-to-be father, and where I should be putting my money versus not putting my money. So this is located in Greensboro, North Carolina, and I'm not going to lie.
Far away, dude.
But here's the deal. I was actually really excited because I was like, well, my second pick is also in a similar neighborhood, and I was like, I can drive down and pick up both in one trip, and then I get to spend some time riding in North Carolina and Virginia, Because like I can just then I'll have two different motorcycles I'm coming back with. I'll hit up some curvy roads. I'll hit up some fun trails. Like it's gonna be a good time.
You gotta ride the tail of the dragon on your new Beamer,
dude.
So here's the thing. It's a lovely bike. It's got a whiff of collector to it. You know, like it's a very purposeful buy. You know, like you get that bike because you want that bike, and I got a lot of respect for that. However, Patrick and I both made the sensible choice, and you are not making a sensible choice as far as like spending your money on this bike. It's a very passionate, sort of like emotionally embroiled purchase that you're walking toward here, Spurge. I'm surprised that you don't have something more practical.
I went away from this, so I redid my list a few times, and I had this one, and then finally I had found there was a black one that I found for $9,000, and I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to go with the yellow one. I'm just going to go with the black one. Doesn't come with the Olins, but like it's gonna be fine. I'm going to be able to sleep at night. It's going to be okay. And then I got away from the R1200S altogether. I was like, I couldn't make it work. I was like $21,000. I was $20,100, and I couldn't get it under the 20 grand mark. And then I switched one of my other bikes, and but I came back to it because I've always wanted one of these. I don't even think I would like it. I think I would, I think I would like it enough, but I don't think it's going to be nearly as great in the corners. Everything that I've ever read about them, they kind of wallow through the corners a little bit, but like,
I can respect the choice though, because it's so. Just like it's different. It's like when you ride that somewhere to your local coffee shop or something, everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, what's that?" I mean, it's that bike.
Whereas when I show up on my GS or Patrick on his KTM, everyone's gonna be like, "Yawn, I don't care."
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
So I'm just gonna do a quick rating of the first three picks we have here. Objective rating. Not obviously I like my pick.
Yeah.
Objective rating. Patrick number 1, Zack number 2, Spurgeon number 3. That's my like my gut instinct here. Like who made the best purchase, who made the worst purchase.
Yeah, you're not biased at all. I get it. Yeah.
I'm not. I love your pick, but it's not the right one.
It's not. There is no right answer here. So if you're listening at home and you disagree with Zack, it's okay. I think what surprised me the most about this entire experience was how many times I had a lot of BMWs. And I didn't see that coming. Like I really
all Euro bikes so far.
But I didn't see it coming. I was like, I'm gonna look for some Honda VFRs or Super Hawks. I'm gonna go bargain hunting for, you know, a Yamaha here or there. Like, dude, I found so many smoking deals on like R1150Rs and like R1200Rs. I was even looking at like RTs. I don't even want an RT. I don't like RTs. RTs are big behemoth bikes, but like I found so many smoking. Like I found a GS 1200 for like $6,800, and I was like, I don't want the cast wheel version, but it's $6,800. I can just go buy the spoke wheels. It was so many great deals on BMWs.
I'll have you know that I found a 1995 Honda VFR 750F. For $2,400, and I was like,
"Ship it to me,
Spurgeon Dunbar."
Yeah.
Well, actually,
I'll come right back.
I'm glad you brought that up. We are going to have to ship it to you because it says it doesn't start. However, it does. It did remind me of you.
Lance sent me an ad the other day in Boston for a Honda Super Hawk in Boston for $1,500, and the thing looked like it was in mint condition. And he was like, "Well, it just needs a battery." I was like, "Go buy it. Like, go buy it right now, and I will come up with my pickup truck." And he was like, "Well, I mean, what if there's a problem with it and this and that?" I said, "Why did you send me this ad? It's $1,500. Like, we'll go half and half, and worst comes, like, we're each out $750, amigo. Like, let's go get this bike." And he ended up not doing it. I was like, "Well, then stop sending me ads. Like, if you're not going to pull the trigger, Lance,
seriously, come on, man.
$1,500 for a Honda Super Hawk."
For an expensive bike, I was looking for fixer-uppers. I couldn't find it. I was looking for something that had like a problem, like a nice bike with an issue. Because I'm like, that's perfect. Like I can handle that. But I didn't find as many, like really any at all, that had like a big enough issue to where it would be a really good deal. I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Sometimes you find that right when you shop for used bikes. So like there are these like little pockets where you're sort of like, you're like you have an idea of sort of like, oh, it'd be great if I get that bike with a, you know, if you say you're looking for a track bike, right? You're like, oh, I just want this bike, but if someone had tipped it over and cracked all the bodywork, great, I'm gonna change the bodywork anyway. And then for some reason you can't find that thing, and you're like, come on, like no one has a GSX-R 600. They tipped over in a parking lot. You're joking. How could this be?
Right.
So Anyway,
well, I would just like to say that I agree with Zach. I think Patrick is the winner here. For $8,900, you can pick up a screaming deal on an 890 Adventure R. I think that if you're between a 2006 R1200S for $1,150, or you're between 2017 R1200 GS Rally for $12,000. You should probably go ahead and just buy the GS2. So buying
shoot the lock off your wallet.
Buying the almost 20-year-old R1200S for $11,500 is probably not the smartest choice amongst the three of us.
I still like it. I still love that you went that way.
Agreed. And you get honorable mention for that, because that's like I said, that's a passionate buy there. I love that. All right, let's move on to mid-price. So this is the second most mid-tier bike that we ended up with here. And let's do Patrick guest honors. Patrick, you a first mid-price Garvin pick. I'm opening the folder now. Oh, okay. Oh my God. Okay, not what I was expecting. If you're not, well, okay. I'm just gonna get into it.
Patrick, what'd you get?
A 2014 KTM 450 SXF. However,
Patrick,
please tell them what it has, Patrick.
So it's a snow bike. It has a timber sled conversion on it, which is about a $5,000 setup on it.
Yeah.
If you want to buy a timber sled, it's about $5,000. So, but it also comes with the wheels and swing arm.
I see that.
So I have a 2-for-1.
I didn't notice this. I didn't notice the little. I didn't notice the sled on the front as much as I noticed the two little wheels that the person is using to move around with.
Yeah. But I was like, at first I seen the snow bike. I'm like, I'm gonna click on that just to see what's up, like, And then it had the wheels with it, and this is another one. Spurge. I was like, I should go buy this motorcycle.
I have a sneaking suspicion that when I come to visit you next, there's going to be a 2014 KTM 450 SFX snow bike in your garage.
So, and just to take a quick pause, everyone. If you're not familiar with what a timber sled is or what a snow bike is, this is a KTM 450 SXF. So it's a KTM
4-stroke dirt
motocross bike, essentially. Yep. Yeah, full-fledged dirt bike. And at the end of the front fork, there is essentially a ski, like sort of like one ski that you'd see at the front of a snowmobile. And then the back, instead of having a swing arm and a wheel, the rear suspension and swing arm and everything has just sort of been like replaced with a snowmobile track. So the motorcycle, you ride the motorcycle like you'd ride a motorcycle, but instead of a wheel on the back, it has a snowmobile track, and instead on the front of the wheel, it has a ski.
And it's not, there's different lengths of track for what you want to do.
Right.
And this is the long track version. So it's got like the big gas tank on the back. You can put like a little toolbox back there.
Is that for the POW?
Yeah, it's for the POW, bro. It's more of a mountain sled type of setup. So it's, I live in a place where I could use that. And I'm like, wow, well, this is a year-round setup. So
it is.
And I knew I wanted to have a dirt bike. I was like just kind of looking for mid-range cheap dirt bikes. I'm like, I gotta have a dirt bike. So even though I had the 890, I actually found the 890 first. I was kind of looking for the high. And so when I came across this one, I was like, I mean, this is it. I had found a couple other dirt bikes. I found like a Beta 300 for like $5,000 or something, but I couldn't. The timber sled put it over the top. That's it.
You know what?
Yeah, like you said.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
What I'll say, Patrick, is that like this is there's got to be something wrong. Like it's $5,000 or $5,500. Like, and the reason I say that is I was too looking for a dirt bike, and I actually in a previous podcast where we were talking about dirt bikes, I had mentioned, maybe going down in displacement would have been the smarter choice for me, going with like a KTM 250 instead of the 350. Mm-hmm. So I was looking at like 250 EXCFs. I couldn't find one for under like $8,000. Like, I was like, who the hell's paying $8,000 for a used dirt bike that's 7 years old? Like, so the fact that you found this for $5,500, and it's not, it's 10 years old, but I mean, how much would that kit cost new?
It is 10 years old. The kit, like I said, is about $5,000 new. But also, those kits are kind of known for being hard on the engine. So I think, more than likely, you're probably going to have to do a piston, in if not right away, in the not too distant future. So I'm not blind to that fact. So this is a 10-year-old bike with God knows how much wear on it because of that snow bike conversion. But I'm willing to take that risk. If it starts and runs and there's not a hole in the case, then it's a deal.
So Patrick brings up a
and
good
it also
point.
speaks to your. Oh, I'm just gonna say it real quick, Spurge. It speaks to Patrick's skill set also, because like the fact that the swing arm is coming separate from the motorcycle, and it might need a piston. Patrick can handle that because he's handy with a wrench in his hand.
Yeah, that was my thought. I'm like, this is perfect. Like, if there's something wrong with it, I can fix it. But I have all the major parts and pieces right there, and it gives me a chance to just really put my $4,500 to work throughout the year, not just the 8 months that it's not snowing in the Black Hills.
Yeah, I think I think the point here to take away, if you're listening to this, is that a lot of the picks that we've discussed so far in the higher, and you can buy it and you're going to be able to ride it, and it's reasonable. As we get into some of these lower picks or some of these let's say more questionable picks, sometimes the maintenance aspect of this comes into play. So Patrick, has, no fear of putting a new piston in or swapping out a whole, rear and front subsection of the motorcycle. So, depending on your individual skill level too, you might want to be looking at some of these picks a little bit closer than others per se.
Fair enough. Okay, Spurge,
Definitely.
you're up. Your mid-priced bike. What do you got? I'm opening the folder right now. Drum roll. Tell the people what you bought, Spurgeon.
I don't remember. So I'm opening up the folder. Oh, this was a good one. So this is another one. And this ties right in with my first pick. So this is located in Cherokee, North Carolina.
I see. So you're making one trip for both bikes, in other words.
Yeah. So if my wife is listening to this, she's been looking for, she wants to go on a baby moon. She's like, well, where do you want to go? So I will say that North Carolina is looking pretty promising for where I'm planning on taking my wife before we have our first child. So Cherokee, North Carolina, there is a 2006 Triumph Scrambler for $4,900. This is the first generation Triumph Scrambler. This is like the cousin to my Bonneville. So do I need this bike? No. But for whatever reason, recently, I've actually got a hankering for a first generation Scrambler. I've found a couple around the country. There was one that was out in Marnie, Iowa at Baxter Cycles that I found a little while ago. We've talked about Baxter Cycles in the podcast before. They are a renowned restorer of vintage Triumph motorcycles out there in Marnie, Iowa. And they had one for sale for a little bit more money than this. It had since sold. So Cherokee, North Carolina for $4,900 for a first gen Scrambler, 16,000 miles. I've already got 80,000 miles on the same engine on my Bonneville, so the mileage doesn't scare me at all.
Well, hang on. This isn't the same engine, I don't think, is it? Didn't the Scrambler have the 360 crank or the 270 crank? Or had a different crank?
Different crank, same engine. It's the 865 engine.
So different firing order, sounds different, but it's like ultimately a lot of the same parts inside is what you're saying. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I will say it's pretty cherry. It looks nice.
Yeah, and I will also just take note, if you're selling a bike, take pictures like this. Like, look at the picturesque background.
By the side of a river.
Right. Like, this is not like with your car on blocks in the background. This makes it, this is much better.
I will say that, getting back to Patrick's point about like the on-road, off-road thing, I had gone back and forth between this Scrambler. I found a smoking deal, and I was trying to pull it up, but I had found a 2019 Scrambler 1200 XE, which is like the Olin suspension, big crazy off-road Scrambler. Zack had ridden this last year with me at Adventure Fest and just crushed it on it for $8,400 in Spring Mills, Pennsylvania. So if you are looking for a smoking deal on a Scrambler 1200, you can check out Track
That's
and
a good
Trail.
one.
Yeah, for $8,500. But no, that's not the one I went with. So I was looking for this is like my adventure bike. This is the one that I'm going to ride off-road, ride on-road.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That XE that you're talking about, I think I would have jumped on that.
Yeah. Well, so the reason that Zack is reacting to this is that the original generation Scrambler is not actually ideal for
it is not an off-road bike.
It is challenging.
Ari and I made a little video back in the day called Scramblers in the Rockies, and I was riding a 2013 or 14 Scrambler. So later than this, fuel injected, but ultimately pretty similar. And it's basically a street bike with a high pipe. It's not the new 1200 Scrambler, especially the XE, with the long travel suspension, is like a pretty serious, gnarly dirt bike. I mean, it's basically just an adventure bike that looks retro. It's like it's pretty capable, but the old bike's not so much.
Yeah, I got about a 6-hour look at the back of the one you were riding. Get on Adventure Fest.
Well, I will say,
it's amazing.
we have a local dual sport out here called Michaud Dual Sport, and I think it's the oldest dual sport in the country. But once a year they open up the Michaud State Forest, and we host our club, Del Val Trail Riders, hosts a dual sport there. And every year a guy shows up on an original 2006, 2007 first gen Triumph Scrambler and smokes the hell out of a lot of people on like 350 dirt bikes. So
That's pretty cool.
While it is not completely capable in the world of like what we think of as a traditional motorcycle, in the right hands, you can actually have a lot of fun and do some crazy stuff with it. And I think for me, you know, at $4,900, make a skid plate for it, make some little crash bars, and just go out and thrash it. The other reason that I'm gravitating towards this is I've seen some people put a little sidecar on it. And as
a responsible soon-to-be parent, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to go babies on bikes and strap the kid to the fender and jump off a sand dune. But I might get a little sidecar action for this down the road.
That is very sweet.
I think there's something to be said for, and I've done this many times, doing things with bikes that they're not necessarily supposed to do, taking sportsers off-road and things like that. Honestly, it's kind of a higher fun factor. Like you said, the guy shows up on one and beats up on dirt bikes. That's just way cooler than showing up with a fully built 450 and winning a race. If you show up on this and you're in the mix, I think the fun factor is like a little bit higher when you do something like that.
You should show up on your 450 with snow tracks and do and do like the whole thing in the middle of the summer, but on a snow track bike.
Well, I am loving the diversity of our picks. And I'm going to transition into my bike now, if that's okay with everyone. And you'll be happy to know that the diversity shall continue. Ooh. So it's my mid-price pick is, for everyone listening, not watching, a 2013 Aprilia Tuono V4 for $4,200.
Oh, man, I really like this.
Felt like just too good a deal. I had some other bikes we'll talk about in a minute, but this is it might be the first generation V4. I don't remember when it started.
13, because I'm pretty sure
13 was the first year.
I think so.
Yep. So it went through a bunch of iterations, and if I'm being honest, I think that was it 2016, 15 or 16. I think is probably the year that I would like covet, because it was before the bike got before it got cruise control, before it got some, like, I don't know, it got bogged down by a little bit of like electronic stuff and sort of like fancy features. But it was after it got the larger gas tank and a slight update to the engine, I believe. So this is before that. This is like a first gen V4, but still a rip roaring bike. You get that Aprilia V4 engine, and it doesn't even have that many miles. It's got like 8,400 miles or something.
Hang on a second. So for those of you that are watching at home and you're reading the fine print on this,
I know what you're going to say. I just think I just seen this.
This comes with a salvage title.
Yep.
This is a 11-year-old Aprilia. If your best friend isn't Ari Henning, you probably shouldn't be looking at this motorcycle. This is going to be a mechanical nightmare for you.
Salvage title just means this frame is scratched or like whatever. Like it got tipped over, something happened, and it got totaled. They total motorcycles in the blink of an eye. Insurance companies do. You know that as well as I do.
I'm not necessarily that worried about the salvage title. I do think it's a smoking deal, but I just think that from a reliability standpoint, an 11-year-old Aprilia first generation V4 might not be the most mechanically sound choice that is going to be made today.
8,000 miles, man. It's going to be just as sound as your 15-year-old BMW.
No way.
I like the salvage title. Like, I understand both sides of that, but what really kind of like would really make me suspect here, it says bike must be presented to CHP and DMV to get registered in California. So it's all.
That's true.
Probably going to be okay, but what if it's not?
If it's not, It's my track bike, which was sort of the point to begin with. I had another bike that I found was a Triumph Street Triple 765, but it was like $8,000, I think, or $7,800, $7,900, something like that. And a Street Triple R from 2017 or something like that, which is like sort of the one I would want, but not quite. It's a good bike. I figured I'd go for the Rip Roarin' V4 because I'm a relatively advanced track rider, and I'm going to want the horsepower, and I'm going to want the ability to go fast. If I can ride around in the street, great.
Yeah.
If I get hung up and with the salvage title with the CHP DMV thing, $4,200 for a V4 track bike, I'm not going to be sad about it.
Yeah, it's a sexy pick for sure, and more than likely you get the title thing worked out.
I think so. I mean, we've been jumped through those hoops before.
You know what's interesting, and this gets back to the comment that I think Patrick made earlier on the pictures. The pictures suck for this ad. Like, it looks dumpy and fat, and like I know that this bike looks better than the pictures show it. Also, is this an aftermarket seat? Because this seat looks horrible. Like
it's a weird angle. It looks like it's like real long or something. Yeah,
it is an aftermarket seat, and I think the thing that's making it look weird is, well, partly the angle of the photo, but also especially the rear cowl. I think the rear part of the passenger seat, or the passenger seat section of the seat, is like a little bit like oblong or maybe longer than stock. Or
it's like
that. So it's
like a custom seat that looks like a cowl, but you can sit on it. So that looks like it like bumps up, but it's also a seat.
I think you're right. Yeah, maybe.
Well, I like the color. I like the burnt yellow color was always one of my favorite colors.
Sure, yeah.
And you are, friends with Ari Henning, so if it does go wrong, you do have somebody mechanically inclined to work on it.
If I ask him to work on an Aprilia V4, he's going to tell me to pound sand. I feel like this pick for me is like makes as little sense as my first pick made good sense. Like buying, like you said, Patrick, buying a 2017 BMW GS is like safe. You know what you're getting. You're probably not gonna miss there. This bike could provide some some bumps in the road from a mechanical standpoint, as Spurg keeps pointing out, or reliability potentially. But man, if I could just booger up some tires at a track day or 3, I'd be awful happy.
So rounding this out, for the middle price picks, like Patrick Garvin went with the most expensive bike of the bunch. Patrick went with a $5,500 dirt bike that's 10 years old that also comes with a snowmobile set, basically. So he has a dirt bike and a snowmobile in one. I went with a almost 20-year-old Triumph Scrambler.
Give me a hard time about buying an old bike. Buying an 11-year-old Aprilia. What are you doing buying an 11-year-old Aprilia?
But what I didn't
realize, buy a 20-year-old Triumph. That's a good buy.
What I didn't realize was that both of my my high pick and my medium pick were both from 2006.
The same age.
Same age. And there was a significant price difference there, and both located in North Carolina. And then Zack came in with the most affordable of the mid picks, $4,200 for an asking price for a 2013 Aprilia Tuono V4. So I think honestly, if we're going sensible, I do feel like my pick was probably the most sensible out of the three of us.
Oh, you mean like for the mid price for this category?
Yeah, if you're watching this at home and you're like, I want to spend $5,000 on a motorcycle, the better bet for an all-around bike that's going to be a little bit dependable would probably be the Triumph. The one that's going to be the most exhilarating is kind of a toss-up between the snow bike or yours.
And the Tuono. So
depends where you're at.
I think it's hard to really stand behind your pick, Spurgeon, and say like, yeah, we'd recommend an 18-year-old carbureted Triumph. But like you said, you've had pretty good luck with your carbureted Bonnie, and many people have the reputation's pretty good. So I would agree with that. I would like to call out also that Patrick's sitting on an all KTM garage, all orange garage so far.
Yeah, I thought of that when I was doing this, and I was like, I don't care.
Yeah, no, totally.
I'm gonna own it. I'm just gonna sit there. I should have wore a KTM shirt and hat. I don't. Wait till you see the third one. I'm really gonna own. These picks.
I tried
have a
so
hunch.
hard. I mean, and maybe I thought too much about this, but I did try so hard to think about bikes that I've just never had before, or think about bikes that were a little bit different. Now I know that the Scrambler isn't that different than the Bonneville, but like, I was trying to think outside of like, sticking 2 more KTMs in the garage when I've already got 2 KTMs in the garage. So I tried to make a little bit of a choice there, I guess.
Well, wait, your garage is empty. You don't get your
I
own,
know, but like in real
gotcha.
life, I got two KTMs.
In real life, you get 2
there,
KTMs.
so,
I know. Well, I'd give Patrick a hard time about an alt KTM garage, but I own one motorcycle and it's KTM. So technically, I have an alt KTM.
But also, to tag more onto your point, Zach, I have a KTM 350 dirt bike in my SXF in my garage.
That's what I said.
Okay, so you basically are just replacing.
Yeah,
Patrick's
Patrick's imaginary garage looks a lot like his real garage.
Looks just like my real garage. I can't wait for you guys to see the third one, because
this is a sign of a life well lived, just like I said to Peter.
I have more thoughts on this, but yes, you're correct.
All right. Well, before we get into all the final thoughts, we've got our low dollar picks, and we've got some special mentions coming up. Patrick says that we are going to be blown away with this final pick. But before we do that,
blown away.
Well, we're going to be blown away. We're building the anticipation so people come back from the ad. So before we go any further, let's get in a word from our sponsor, Motul.
Okie doke, everybody. We are back. We are going to jump into our low dollar picks, and then, of course, digest all of these wonderful adventures we've had with theoretical money on the internet. Patrick, let's talk about your low dollar pick. So you, as it stands right now, you have spent approximately $9,000 plus $5,500. You spent approximately $14,500. So you got about $5,500 left to spend on your final bike. You have a KTM dirt bike with a snow bike kit on it and a KTM 890 Adventure R. You got an all orange garage. You got an ADV bike and a dirt bike that converted to a snow bike. I feel like I got a hunch where you're going here with your last $5,500, but please lay it all on us.
Well, that garage is going to stay orange, but not necessarily KTM.
That's what I thought.
And it is a 2001. It's somebody's grandpa's Dyna, is what it is. It's a 2001 Dyna.
Harley basic.
But for those
Harley
of you,
Davidson Dyna.
Harley
Yep.
Davidson Dyna is what we're talking about here. For those of you that are not sure what a Dyna is.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's kind of grandpa'd out. I mean, even has a record player in the background of the picture. If you were wondering how old this gentleman probably is.
It does, you're right. I see that now.
It's located in Beulah, Wyoming, which is not far from me, only about 20 miles away. Beulah is just over the border in Wyoming.
Okay.
Yeah, great steakhouse there in Beulah.
Oh, perfect. So you can get a ribeye and a new
Dyna. and a Dyna. And it's pretty stock looking. It does have 43,000 miles. Again, doesn't scare me. I also looked at this as like my project bike, because there's no way that I'm leaving this thing the way it looks.
Sure. Just before you get into what you do to it, I want to give a quick background. So it's got like it's a fairly basic looking Harley Cruiser. It's got leather saddlebags. It's got a little sissy bar on the back.
Billboard windshield.
It's got a little. Yeah, it's right. It's got the Riot Shield windshield on there. What engine is this bike? So this is
it's a twin cam. It's the 88-inch twin cam. It's the early twin cam, like the first one.
Okay. So how big is that? That's
88 inches. So what is that? 1450 or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Roughly.
All right. And
yeah.
So why were you attracted to this model? I mean, you got a lot of history with Harley Davidsons and modifying them and that kind of thing. But so where would you go with this, do you think?
I like Dynas because they're versatile. You know what I mean? They handle for a Harley. They handle pretty well. Obviously, you can tour on it. It could just be my like everyday beat around town bike if I want. And I think it looks like it has some aftermarket shocks on it from the looks of it. I don't think those are shock shocks.
Yeah.
And honestly, I wouldn't do a ton to it. I would just strip some of that stuff off there. I'd put some bars on it that I like, throw a 2-into-1 in it, maybe put a cam in it. For other people, this may be
I was saying I call bullshit when you're like, I'm not going to do that much to it. I'm going to rip the engine down to the crank pins and then rebuild it from there, and maybe some exhaust headers.
Yeah. So for me, this is my project bike. I'm going to tinker with this. I'm going to change. It's like the 890. I'm just going to ride it. I'm going to put tires on it and ride it.
Sure. Correct. Tires,
for this
oil,
bike,
chain, sprockets.
Yeah, this will be something I can customize and mess with, and and it's my own. And I'm very familiar with it. And for me, I'm probably not going. Actually, the alternate to this was a 2020 MT09 for $5,700. I would have had to rework some things with the other bikes, but it was one of the there was a $5,700 like 5,750 2020 MT09 that I think had been dropped. It has a scratch on the engine cover or whatever, and it's a super fun bike.
I thought you were going to go with a Sportster first of all. Like I that's what I was guessing. Yeah.
I was looking for them, and there wasn't. I had the money to spend, and the dyno was the Sportsters I were looking at were like $3,000 or $4,000. I wasn't looking for a super good deal in a Sportster because I would have had to kind of. I felt bad about like, okay, well, I'm going to buy a $3,000 Sportster and I'm going to put $8,000 into this bike, and then we're way beyond the $20,000 budget. So I was trying to find something that actually fit into the budget, and I'm not, I felt like I was cheating buying like a $2,500 Sportster and just dumping money into it. So this is a bike.
That's fair.
This is a bike that I would actually buy and ride and like nickel and dime it over time.
Well, I think it's funny that you called it a grandpa bike, because I think that could actually be a new game that we play where it's like there's a record player and a dyna in the garage. Is it your grandfather or your hipster neighbor? Which one is it? Do you live in Brooklyn or do you live in, where is this, Duluth, Wyoming?
I'm pretty sure there's a shotgun or something laying right behind it. If you look, you can see the butt of a rifle behind the headlight below the record player.
It's still, my game still stands. Is it a hipster or is it your grandpa?
Beulah, Wyoming. Yeah. This guy likes to party.
They're definitely guns back there. Yeah, guns, record, a big CRT TV.
So I probably would also make a friend for life, is what we're saying, if I went and bought this motorcycle from this guy. But the other part was, I felt kind of bad, and I was like, you know what? I don't feel bad about, I currently have an FXR, which is basically the early version of a Dyna, pretty much, very similar motorcycle. And I'm like, I just put all the bikes back in my garage that I have. So I felt a little bad about that. I didn't really kind of stretch out. But I'm like, you know what? I don't feel bad about it. I like what I like. And I feel blessed to have what I have. I have the bikes that I want, which is great. Of course, I would always probably find something else to buy. But when I had the chance to go clean slate, I put 3 bikes, my 3 main bikes, I just put them all right back. So I'm like, I feel pretty good about it. I maybe feel good about what I already have.
That's one approach.
Absolutely, man.
One approach.
Yeah, like I said, sign of a life well lived. Yeah. All right. Well, I think I appreciate you got sort of like a gnarly do-it-all mid-sized adventure bike. You got a dirt bike with a crazy snow kit on it, and you got your wobbly Davidson, which being a resident of Sturgis is a requisite, I assume. Otherwise,
I think I have to. Yeah, they kicked me out.
You have to have that.
Zach, did you add a Harley Davidson to your garage as your final pick?
Am I going next?
Awesome.
Yeah, go for it, man. What was your last bargain pick here?
I gotta pick. It's going to be controversial. I know the last one was also controversial, but as you guys know, I spent a lot of my money on the first motorcycle. So I spent $12,000 on that GS, and then I spent about $4,000 on $4,200 on that Tuono, which means I only have $4,000 left, $3,500 left to spend, basically. And what I found was a 2020 Royal Enfield Interceptor 650, INT 650.
For $3,500. You landed, man.
$3,500.
You landed it.
So this is it's sort of like the budget Triumph Bonneville, if you will. It's like a retro styled, sort of classic looking bike. It's not really cafe racer. It's not really a scrambler. It's just like retro cool looking bike. It's a parallel twin, 270 crank, nice thumpy exhaust note. And yeah, I had one of these around for Daily Rider a couple years ago, and I liked it. And when I was shopping for cheap bikes, to your point, Spurge, about looking for a dirt bike and not being able to find anything, I was like thinking, should I get a dirt bike? I was thinking about trying to get a smaller ADV bike so I'd be a little more capable off road. Should I get a bike like a scooter, something in the city, something that's like more practical for riding around? I couldn't find anything that seemed like it was like a really good deal for $4,000 or less that wasn't just a little bit goofy. And I think this INT 650 is a sweetheart of a bike, and it's a steal. $3,500, right?
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
It's got 17,443 miles on it.
Which means it's had 8 valve adjustments by now, hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah, you're hoping he did that. Yeah.
I think it's like every 4,000 miles or 6,500 miles. It's something like
Yeah.
or maybe less than that. It's a lot. Anyway.
Well, it sounds like he or she who owns the bike now loved it. Because if you figure it's a 2020, they are the first owner. They're averaging, they're averaging 4,000 miles a year riding the bike around Southern California.
Yeah.
Like they're enjoying it. And they even said this is a bike that they've loved for the last 4 years. Really like the style. It's just time for them to move on to something different, but it'll treat you well. They actually put that in the ad. It's going to treat you well, Zach.
And you can pay them in cryptocurrency. It says in the ad, you can pay them in crypto.
It does. It says crypto okay.
Which is my favorite thing about that whole bike.
Call your stockbroker, baby. I'm buying a $3,500 Royal Enfield down in Reseda.
I'll give you 0.000006.7 Bitcoin for this bike.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be one thing if it was like my Ferrari's for sale, $175,000 for this 2022, blah, blah, blah. You can pay me in crypto if you want, or Jewel cartridges. But but a $3,500, quasi-British classic
But other than that, it looks like a super clean bike, which is always nice to see.
It looks nice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In a nice color. It's a sort of like asphalt gray, kind of silver, kind of goes with the metal fenders. I don't know. I think it would be a real sweetheart of a bike. And I want you to know that I thought dirt bike, I thought scooter, I was trying to think outside the box, find something that was good, but I couldn't pass this up. It's just like too much bike for that amount of money, in my opinion.
I think it's a lovely little pick, and I think it'll treat you well as you're cruising around back and forth on your daily ride or commute to the office, or
perhaps
maybe taking a ride around the neighborhood, picking up a pizza.
Maybe I'll even put a sidecar on it, like Spurg is going to do with his trumpet.
There you go.
It rounds out your picks nice because you have a potential track bike. You have your lockdown, not going to have any problems with, and you can take your GS into the dirt. If you want to hit a trail or something. So it does round out your selection really nicely.
I thought so. Thank you so much, Patrick. It's very nice of you to say. I would like to call out, so far, Patrick has 2 KTMs and a Harley Davidson. I have a BMW, an Aprilia, and a Royal Enfield. Spurgeon so far has a BMW and a Triumph. Not one Japanese bike so far. Not one Japanese bike.
Well,
Spurgeon Dunbar, what is your low-budget pick, and are you going to save the day?
Buckle up, baby, because I did not see this coming. I got onto Craigslist. I did a search within like 50 miles of my home, and I found a 1978 Yamaha XS 750. Now, for those of you that have listened to the podcast, my dad owned this bike. There is a picture of me sitting on this motorcycle. I sent it to Spurgeon Sr. this morning and was like, dude, $2,600 in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. Let's show up.
Dad, do you love me now?
But I said, let's show up with $1,000 each and just buy this. Like, this is one that I might shut down the recording when we're done here, take a quick ride out to Downingtown and see what we can find.
I think the takeaway here is Spurgeon's gonna buy a bike.
He
has been the closest.
I have been trying so hard to find the same bike that my dad had from '78. This is the color. This color, it's a silver with like a red pinstriping. Not only does this color not show up very often, the paint is immaculate. At least in the photos.
Really good.
Yeah. It looks like it's in nice shape.
So this is for those of you, there's not a lot of information on the ad. So if the ad is up right now on the screen, this is a triple cylinder motorcycle. Yamaha made it from the 750 was, I think, from like 78 to 80, and then they bumped it up to an 850, and that lasted but it was only like even with the 850, it was only maybe made for like 4 or 5 years. It wasn't made for a while. It's
sort of like
shaft drive,
granddaddy of the MT09 in some ways. It's a Yamaha 3-cylinder.
But they were also trying to go after the BMW thing. Like it was a shaft drive.
Shaft drive.
Yeah, my dad had the big Windjammer fairing on his with saddlebags.
Nice.
So like you could use it for touring. He rode his down to Mexico and back and took all kinds of trips on it. Like, or you could kind of like, as it sits right now, there's nothing on it. It's kind of stripped down. I don't love the seat. I'd want to try and find a different seat for it. But like
the seat is very, very 80s, very kind of like
very much
Batman 1977.
It's probably super comfortable.
But I don't know.
It could be. I mean, it's thick as
I'm looking at this and I'm like, I'm having a hard time trying
the
to
one thing I was looking at in the pictures that makes me think it's really clean is if you look at the gauges. He took a picture of the gauges, and a lot of times on those old bikes, if they haven't been stored inside or covered up or something like that, yeah, you see a lot of wear in the gauges, a lot of yellowing. The gauges look pretty good. That might be a really, really clean bike.
That's a good call out. Yeah, the gauges look awfully clean. Yeah,
a little bit of rust, a little bit of rust on some of the nuts and bolts that you can kind of see in the photos.
Sure.
But like the paint in the photos just looks so good. And
there's a little bit of rust on Spurgeon Senior's nuts and bolts at this point. He's not gonna mind.
Yeah, Rusty Nuts Dunbar, we call him around the house. But it's got a Kickstarter on it. It's got, I mean, I don't know, like it's not going to hold up from a modern standard to like anything that, you know, is going to knock your socks off, but like makes about 80 horsepower out of a triple from 1978. Like it's going to be a fun bike to rip around on.
Probably going to be pretty fun. So I would like to call out that I think my parents, I believe, honeymooned in Europe on this bike, on an XS 750, or it might have been 850, but a Yamaha triple, I think, as we've talked about on the podcast before. So it's like it plucks at my heartstrings a little bit too. And I think it's a great pick. I also think, first of all, thank goodness, Spurgeon, that you picked a Japanese bike. I can't believe we almost got through an entire Craigslist shopping spree and nobody.
I mean, I did pick one that's like 45 years old, but
you did,
yeah,
which is surprising. And I want to say I was after a Tenere 700. There just weren't any of them around. Anyway, the point is, I think it's interesting we went in different directions with our budget pick. Our last picks, all of us, we had, Garvin went for the Harley Dyna, sort of his home turf in some ways, charismatic, sort of like classic motorcycle. And I went with Royal Enfield, which is like a new bike, but it's meant to feel old and look old. And then Spurgeon went actual vintage.
$2,600.
We all kind of went the same direction. In
1978 Yamaha XS 750. And what I will say is that Spurgeon Senior was not nearly as excited about this as I was. So I don't know if Tim Quartz is listening to the podcast, but I'm going to give Zack's dad a call when this is over, and I'm going to see if he wants to go 50-50, and we'll split time. Like I'll ride it for a little while, then I'll drop it off up in Vermont, and we'll just switch back and forth.
Okay. Yeah, I'll pitch it to him. I don't think he's clamoring for another 70s Yamaha triple in his garage, but I'll let him know that you found it. I think it's time to step back for a second and talk about the garages everyone has here. I know I did a quick rundown. Spurge, how much money did you end up with anyway? Because you had $2,600 for this Yamaha XS 750, and then it was $6,000 for that Scrambler.
Hang on, let me do my math. No, the Scrambler was 49. I remember I reworked it, so I was significantly under. So it was
11,500 for your BMW.
Yep. And then it was,
and then it was 6,900 for the.
No, I think it was 4,900. So let's just round up to 5. I'm at 57 million on my calculator. That's I've done something horribly wrong. So $11,500. Yeah, but I came in under $20,000. Yeah.
And you're getting ripped off from that BMW, but that's okay. That's fine. That happens to the best of us.
Listen, I'm not going to pay him 11,500. I'm gonna, or her. I'm going to make him. I'm going to make him an offer. Yeah.
Same thing with my BMW. I'm going to talk that guy way down. So I ended up, I think, it was $12,000 for that BMW, and then it was 42 hundo for my Tuono, and then 35 hundo. So I'm at 19.7, but like you guys said, that GS has been posted for a month.
Yeah, you're under 20. You're under $20,000. That's all that matters.
And then Patrick, you had it was a $9,000 KTM Adventure.
I got $501 left to get a steak and some beer in Beulah when I pick up the last bike.
You had $19,499.
Yep,
that's pretty good. And my $900 is going for that road trip down to North Carolina and back.
Yeah, gas money. Yeah.
My baby moon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay, fair enough. Well, I guess I'm reaching for I'm trying to like I'm thinking about everyone's garage here. We got Spurge. You have Spurgeon Dunbar, everybody, has a 2006 boutique BMW sport touring bike that he had a poster of on his wall. He's got an original Triumph, or not original, a first gen modern classic Triumph Scrambler with carburetors on it from 2006, and then a 1978 Yamaha XS 750 triple. You are, if the Dos Equis most interesting man in the world was going to pick one of our garages, he would go with yours, Spurgeon.
I feel like you're about to start a motorcycle museum.
Well, I'm
Like-
as you guys are saying this, I'm actually concerned about the amount of time that I'm going to have to keep all these bikes running.
Yes.
You know, given all the other responsibilities in my life at the moment. So I'm not sure if this is the right decision, but I'm going to stick with it. And you know, they say that the first generation ABS and fuel injection on those BMWs was nothing if not horribly reliable. So what could go wrong with that? Yeah.
Hey, at least it had ABS. You know, like not a lot of bikes in that era did.
But I think
Spurg just went with the classics.
But I think where we look at Patrick's garage, predictability, right? Like there was nothing that Patrick said out loud that I was like, I didn't see that coming. I didn't expect Patrick to put a Harley Dyna in his garage or a KTM snow bike.
That being said, really, I think again, pretty good. I mean, the KTM 890 Adventure R is a safe pick. That's that's pretty middle of the road. That's a basic thing to buy. But like you said, you already have one. You know, you love it. It's a great bike. Everyone seems to like it. The other, you know, a Harley Dyna might be commonplace in some places, but knowing you, Patrick, it'll end up being kind of a weird bike. And then of course you got your dirt bike, snow bike combo. So like you really, I think you might have the widest spread, like the greatest diversity in your garage.
I mean, like I said, I like what I like. I couldn't.
I do think
I
think the 890 is probably the bargain of the day though. Like if you're looking at you want to spend under $10,000 on a great all around do anything motorcycle, I think an 890 for $9,000 with that mileage is probably the deal of the day.
Yeah,
Okay,
there was
Go ahead,
there was a 2016 1190 adventure that I had in there before I found that one, and it was more money, but it would have been the replacement to that.
Right. That's fair. So I kind of like this trend though. Does the 890 for $9,000 maybe gets the gold medal of all of this shopping? What's the silver medal? I think you could argue Spurge's Scrambler, Spurge's Triumph. That's a pretty good deal, and that's a pretty nice bike. But I might say that Royal Enfield. I mean, that's a lot of bikes.
I was actually thinking it depends on that Aprilia.
No, the Aprilia is not. No.
I mean, if
there's
if
something
it comes out,
there's something wrong with that motorcycle, and
that's what I'm saying. Like
it's going to cost you so much more money to buy that bike and to own it than you think it's going to.
Zach, that's a bike
$300 left over.
If I would have seen it, I'd be like, I really want to buy that bike. Like, that's one of them. I would be, yeah.
I think that if the stars align, that's a freaking steal to get that bike
right
for $4,200. But Spurgeon is fair to be skeptical.
Yeah, you can color me skeptical. I think if you're looking,
what's your vote for silver medal then, Spurge, of all the shopping?
I would say it's either the Scrambler, the 2006 Scrambler, or the Royal Enfield. I think $3,500 to $1,400, and like I think even looking at what those first gen Scramblers are going for, it's the most affordable one that I found. And from a condition standpoint, it looks, at least in the photos and the description, it seems to be immaculate. So. But the same thing for your Royal Enfield. 17,000 miles on a modern Royal Enfield, not a bad deal for $3,500. I think for those people looking under the $5,000 mark, those are the two bikes. As much as I'd love to say that XS 750 should run right out and buy one, I think that's going to be a special treat for the right person.
Right. So last question, and it's getting less and less interesting. We should have done it the other way around. Bronze medal. What finishes out the podium for the best buy here of the bikes we chose? The GS.
Yeah.
My GS for $12,000 or 10.5 if I butter Peter up just right.
I mean, I think looking at you're getting saddlebags, you're getting BMW.
It's a lot of bike.
You're getting on-road, off-road. You're getting you could ride it across the country and meet your dad halfway, or you could throw your wife in the back and go out for cheeseburgers while the babysitter has the kid. Like I think you've just got
fantastic.
You've got so much. It's just like it is a perfect do anything, and it's the rally edition. Rally.
Yeah, like you said you can bargain with the guy. Honestly, I'd sell all that luggage and get $1,000 back, put some soft luggage on it. But I think that's a good deal. And it's a great bike.
Okay. So if you took our gold, silver, and bronze picks and made a garage out of that, you'd have an 890 and a GS, which shows that ADV bikes kind of do it all. They kind of do. And then you'd have a retro bike of some kind in the garage too, which that wouldn't be too bad. Well, at this point, I want to talk about the thing I think we've all been like champing at the bit here. some honorable mentions. I think we all tripped over some stuff that we were either really tempted by or kind of blown away by or whatever, tickled by. We're just sort of like, I can't believe this thing that I found. So do you guys have any of those? And if so, Patrick, can you go first as guest honors?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned them, and I was hoping for more like wackiness with things, and it could just be I was basically looking in my like 6 or 7 hour range in Wyoming, Montana, Colorado.
Yep.
So there's a lot of dirt bikes. You know what I mean? There's a lot of dirt bikes, ADV bikes, things like that. So I was kind of hoping for some maybe like wacky like OCC chopper that somebody bought that was like sitting or something like that had a ridiculous engine in it. But really, it was just the 2020 MT09 and then the 1190. Those were my two alternates that I just came back to. There was also a 2017 Beta 300 street legal
2-stroke 300.
Yeah, 2-stroke 300 headlight taillight. I think it was $5,500. I had pushed that one over there, and honestly, I was kind of would have taken the place of the snow bike, but I could not do the snow bike.
How could you can't pass up the snow bike.
You can't pass up
You're
the snow
making
bike.
money.
Yeah.
All right. Spurgeon, what about you? What'd you trip over?
So I just want to go out there and say that I found so many different, I was looking up 2007 Triumph Sprint STs in California, trying to get Zack to buy that. I was looking up, I went back. I've learned this about myself in this episode. I have an affinity for the year, makes, and models of when I started riding. So my first bike was a 2005. I got my motorcycle license in 2005, and like my glory days of like just in it for the first time and just jumping into the deep end of the pool. 2005 to like 2010 motorcycles are, for whatever reason, I am very attracted by them. So like I was looking up 2006 Ducati Monster S2R 1000s. I did not find any 2006 models. 2006 had 2005 had the white rims, but I found some 2006 models that people either were reasonable and they're like, this is a $5,000 motorcycle. And I was like, that I could do that. And then there were some people that were like, mine's worth $12,000. And I'm like, I don't think it is. So a lot of different aspects of that.
One of mine that I saved for you, I just slacked you guys the link. I don't know if you can see it or not. 2002 Ducati Monster S4. That's a 2002 Ducati Monster with the 916 Superbike engine in it. Previous generation Superbike engine in it. It's in like the charcoal gray with the red rims. It's got the high pipes. It's like
that's the generation I want. Like that's the look of a Ducati Monster.
That's the one right there. Yep.
And it's I mean it's like it's not a steal or anything, but $6,500. Like it would probably be pretty fun. I bet it sounds glorious.
It's got the Termagani exhaust on it.
Yeah, it's got some termies on it.
You got
very flashy red wheels.
Olin suspension, it looks like. Oh,
looks like it's got some aftermarket clutch stuff on it. Maybe
for
got some carbon on it.
$6,500. Oh,
it's got some carbon.
Aren't you tempted by that?
Totally.
It's actually
got carbon fiber pieces on it.
It's on Craigslist, but it's an iconic motorbikes bike.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
I can call Abby right now and be like,
Abby.
Get me in on this.
I'll give you $4,800.
if you deliver it. My point is I ended up, the one that I found that was my odd duck out, and the reason that I didn't go with it is that it is currently located in Oregon. So if you are listening to this and you live in the Oregon area, 2007 Triumph Tiger 1050 ABS. This is like their version of like a multistrada. It had the 1050 triple engine in it. It is in the cool like burnt yellow color. It's got the color matched saddlebags. It's only got 21,000 miles on it, which I am not afraid of for this motorcycle. It's $5,300. Like this is sport touring, sport bike, sport. Like it is. This bike is so underrated, and if you don't know what this bike is, it's just a hoot and a holler of a good time. Great engine. One of my favorite engines in motorcycling is that 1050 Triumph Triple. So this is my official honorable mention.
Okay. Well, I didn't have an official one. I just had like a whole bunch of links that I was like, I can't wait to send the guys these bikes. I think they're going to get a real kick out of it.
So if you want to see the pictures of this, the Tiger is in the official doc that producer Chase had sent over.
Oh, it is. Okay.
It
All
is,
right,
yeah.
Okay.
It's in my honorable mention doc. So Zach, aside from the Ducati Monster S4 that you sent over to me, which I like that. I
I'm
like
so
that a lot.
glad
like
you
that.
asked. I'm sending you guys another one right now. It doesn't have a year, but this is a Honda Trail 90 for $1,500.
Mm.
And it, I think, is the pre-1970. I think that's the 1967 to 69, maybe, because it looks like it has like the sort of girder fork situation. It's a beautiful little motorcycle. I mean, it's a slightly older version of the one that Ari rode across Alaska for our CTXP episode. This is one of the most iconic and most sold motorcycles in the history of the world. The Honda Trail 90. It's like a little sort of half scooter, half trail bike kind of thing.
This is in
and
my
it is
this
just
is in my old neighborhood. I used to live just south of Eagle Rock
right,
in
right.
California. Yeah.
It's such a handsome little bike, and like $1,500. I don't know. Dig around in the
Yeah.
couch cushions. Am I right?
I mean,
It's a cool
does-
bike.
yeah.
It does say it needs a carb clean and a battery jump, and like hasn't been ridden in a few months, but like it looks pretty. It
Looks pretty
clean.
solid.
It doesn't
But
look,
unlike an Aprilia V4, if you drop this off at Ari Henning's garage, he'll take it with
Oh.
a smile on his face.
Yeah. I mean,
oh, he'll take it with
Yeah.
a smile and it'll come back singing.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So that was another one I found. Let me see. I know we don't have all day here, but let me just do like one more, maybe one more, maybe two more. This is it. Here we go.
We
Here
can, we can go through all the R1200Ss that I found because I have more than one.
Here we go, guys. This is a shout out to Bruce. Anyone who knows Bruce from previous podcasts, Bruce is my spiritual, my spirit animal when it comes to turbos. Bruce, if you're listening, I found a 1982 Yamaha XJ650 turbo
That's pretty
for
sweet,
$5
man.
grand. And like, is it $5 grand well spent? Probably not.
No.
But is it a
No.
turbo from the 80s? And like, it looks pretty clean.
I mean, it looks hideous. It
I love it.
it reminds you how ugly these bikes were.
And to be clear, Spurgeon's saying it looks hideous because it was designed in this way. Not that it looks like it's in bad condition.
It looks like it's in mint
beautiful
condition. Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like something like Judge Dredd would ride or something like that. Some weird
Definitely.
futuristic. I really like it, by the way. It's fantastic.
I just think it's like it is ugly and it's probably bad to ride from everything that I've heard, but I couldn't help but think of you, Bruce. I hope you're listening. Because I really felt like that was that stood out to me.
As long as we're still going, I'll slack this one over to you. We'll have old Chase's producer Chase pull it up on the screen. Then, 2014 Ducati Monster 1200 with a ton of add-ons for $7,800. So this is one where if you're looking for just a naked sport bike that doesn't really look like it needs much, it looks like it's got all the bells and whistles for $7,800. Again, Ducati Monster, just kind of, this is the next generation up over what Zach and I and Patrick were spitting around earlier.
You got it. You got the hots for a Monster, Spurgeon. You gotta just get one.
I don't know. There's a lot of different things that I've got. Like I found a 2008 Triumph Daytona 675 for $6,500, which sounds a little bit steep, but you're starting to see. And again, this goes back to like my 2005, 2010 fetish that I didn't realize that I had up until this. But like $6,500 for a first gen Daytona 675 in like beautiful condition, and I'll send the link over. It's blue. It's not like a boring color. It's kind of flashy. Got the gold rims. I think
The blue
there's
with
a
gold
lot.
rims is a good look.
There's a lot.
I'm still
there's a
looking
lot
at the
of value.
Monster. That's a nice looking bike.
Well, I think that it's safe to say we could do this all day, and we don't have literally all day, nor do you, high side, low side listeners. So I think, is everyone cool wrapping this up and moving on? I think we did a good job breaking down everybody's purchases. I think everyone, I'm really proud of the garages that you all built, and I gotta say that it makes me optimistic about my future garage. If I can do this with 10 or 20,000 of hypothetical dollars, that if I could scrape together that cash, I might be able to actually build a garage that I would truly enjoy.
One day we can do it, but I do think it's time. Patrick has an opportunity to redeem himself.
He
So
does.
if we learned anything, Patrick, what I'd recommend as we move into the high side, low side engine sound guessing game is don't just scream out the first thing that comes to your mind and insist that you're correct. Maybe take a minute, take a breath, and we'll think it through.
You know, whatever credibility I had from my impeccable record is completely lost.
Gone.
After I'm traumatized.
Right. Okay. All right, everybody. So here we go. We're going to jump into the engine sound guessing game. If you don't know how this works, we're going to listen to about 30 seconds of a motorcycle starting up. Hopefully revving a few times. We have not heard this sound, neither Spurgeon nor myself, and especially not Mr. Patrick Garvin. And then we'll make some guesses. So let's take a listen to the engine sound. And you know, if you're in your cubicle at work or your car on a commute, shout it out if you know it.
Holy cold revs.
All right.
Oh. Well, we can start with the basics. Patrick, guest honors. How many cylinders does it have? This is I would say this is a fairly easy one, I think.
2, possibly 3.
Oh, not what I would have said. Okay.
Definitely,
I will say
definitely
whoever-
fuel injected.
Yeah,
you
definitely
can
fuel
hear the
injected.
fuel pump, yeah.
Hear the fuel pump. Whoever did that, let it warm up before you rev it that.
Maybe
high
they
again.
did. Maybe they let it
Mr.
warm up before they did
Mr.
that.
Cold Rev there.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Put her on the chip.
on the chip.
Zach, how many cylinders are you thinking? 4?
I'm thinking 4. I'm thinking 4, which makes
Really?
it really hard. It doesn't
didn't
sound
think
quite
4.
throaty enough for 3 cylinders for me, and it doesn't sound bassy enough for 2. So I think it's 4, but I've been wrong before. In fact,
All right.
I'm mostly wrong. So I don't know. What about you, Spurge?
For the audience, let's go ahead. Let's play it one more time.
Yes.
And then we'll go into
Yeah,
our
let's do
first
that.
round of guesses and some hints.
Copy. Long
Okay, it's definitely not 2. I don't know why I said that, but it's got some throatiness to it.
I'm with Zach. I feel like this is an inline 4. It doesn't sound cross-planey like Yamaha cross-plane 4. It sounds
No, I
more
don't
like
think so.
yeah. All right.
And it sounds big to me. That's what I'll say. I think it sounds like pretty big bore. Like it's not a 600 or a 750. I don't think. I think it's like we're going ZX11. We're going ZX14. I don't know. Something like FJR maybe, Yamaha FJR.
I was kind of on the same thing with the Kawasaki, maybe because of that starter noise. And I have.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say any more to put my foot in my mouth like normal. We'll wait for I think go to the hints, but I have an inkling of something.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, let's do the
get a
first
hint,
hint.
Spurjo.
The first hint of today's engine sound guessing game, and keep in mind as you're playing at home, Zach and Patrick and myself are playing. The only person in the room that knows this is producer Chase. First hint that producer Chase is allowing us is this isn't going to help anybody out. Inline 4. So it's just confirming that it's an inline 4. Let's just.
Well, I'm proud of us anyway. So let's move on.
Let's go right to the final hint. Remember, we only get 2 hints. The final hint is it's a fairly common block from this manufacturer, but the tuning of this model makes it unique and underappreciated in its segment. This is actually a hint from the owner. This isn't.
Of course it is.
This
You know,
isn't.
the owner's the only person who would say that.
This isn't a producer Chase hint. This is somebody that's very proud of their machine, the
Yes.
owner. So I'll read the hint one more time. It is a fairly common block from the manufacturer. So the engine block itself, the engine is fairly common. However, the tuning of this specific model makes it unique and underappreciated in its segment. And it's an inline 4.
I mean, the only thing I can think is maybe like It's a Kawasaki H2.
That's what I was
it's
thinking. I was thinking
I don't hear the supercharger, but it's just at low revs. So
that's what I thought too. I was thinking H2, but I'm like, I can't hear.
But if it's underappreciated in its own segment, why would it be? That does like I'm thinking more of like
H2's pretty flashy.
What if thinking back to the podcast episode we did with Avi, where we were talking about like the MT10, which is underappreciated because it only makes 160 horsepower, or like something that's like a naked bike with a different tune to it.
Yeah.
That's
so it could be like
underappreciated.
BMW M1000 S1000 single R or something like that. So it's like it's not the S1000 double R that everyone like is like the big sport bike and the fancy bike. It's got like a detuned version of that, but it's actually very, very good and underappreciated. I don't know.
I like my mind is still like MT10, but it just doesn't have. It doesn't have the cross plane sound to it. So.
Yeah. All right.
S1000R was interesting.
Yeah. S1000 single R could be or like the H2.
Yeah,
I agree with you, Spurge. It doesn't the underappreciated doesn't necessarily.
I think like first gen S1000R. I think that's a great bike, and I think it's underappreciated. I think that's what we.
I'm with you on that.
Okay, that's our collective guess. I don't actually think that's right, but I think it's a good guess.
We are absolutely not correct. We couldn't be more off if we tried. The only reason we are in the same ballpark is that the S1000 single R is a 4-cylinder motorcycle. However, it is not a 2009 Suzuki Bandit 1250 SEA.
Wow.
Which
it was.
Yeah,
it was a big inline four, so we got that far.
Yeah,
I don't remember. I'm not sure I agree necessarily with it being a common
on the block engine. Yeah,
maybe it's they use a lot of those engines.
The owner is Andre from Canada, so maybe this is a pretty popular engine model up in Canada.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I have ridden a Bandit 1200, and it is a good bike, arguably underappreciated.
First street bike in the sevens.
What did you say, Patrick?
Brock Davison, first no bar street bike in the sevens. Was a Bandit, a nitrous Bandit.
And just if you don't understand that lingo, that is first street bike with no wheelie bar at a drag strip that went into the sevens, so under 8 seconds.
Correct.
Right?
Yep. Brock Davison put a nitrous Bandit into the sevens.
Well, you hear that, Andre? First no bar bike in the sevens.
I hope Andre, you're pulling similar numbers when you're heading down to the local Canadian drag strip, racing for donuts and maple syrup on a Saturday evening. Andre does say that the Canadian trim that was sold with the full fairings, or he has the Canadian trim, which was sold with the full fairings and the travel cases. So, Andre, thank you so much for the engine sound. Yeah. Thank you.
You stumped us, Andre. You stumped us.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Garvin stumped again. Your reputation is not coming back, Patrick.
It's just a mere mortal at this
inline
point.
4 is a pretty tough one to pick out. You know,
it's rough.
There's a lot of choices, and I feel like we sort of knew it was big bore, but I guess we should have known better. I think the Bandit's an oil and air cooled, right? Maybe so. Like, was it liquid cooled in that generation? Maybe, I'm not sure. So it's we arguably could have had a finer ear to hear the to hear like a little bit more mechanical noise from the engine, since it didn't have a complete water jacket.
Well,
but I don't think we should beat ourselves up, you guys.
If you want to play the engine sound guessing game with us, maybe the next time Patrick's on, make sure you send your engine sound over to highside lowside at RevZilla.com. We need a sound of the engine starting up. Let the engine idle a little bit, as Patrick noted. Probably want to warm up before you give it some revs, but we need a couple good revs there. Andre's was a perfect example of what we're looking for, roughly 25 to 30 seconds in length. Send that over to highside lowside at RevZilla.com, and you might get a chance to play the highside lowside engine sound guessing game with your own motorcycle. And how embarrassing would it be for you if you don't win, which we've had happen before too. So
that's true. All right, well, Patrick, I think you've served your tour, my friend. You've been here, you've shopped until you've almost dropped, I would say, and we appreciate all your energy and all your picks. It's been super fun having you around. Do you have any closing thoughts for anyone shopping for a used bike before you head out?
This was a fun little exercise, even if, to do on your own, even. It's pretty fun. Give yourself a budget and go bike shopping. Like, you'll learn some things about yourself and about what maybe you like, or, you're definitely just stuck with, like me. You can't get away from it.
Yeah, totally, man. Totally. All right, man. Right on. Well, thank you again for hanging out, and we'll hope to have you back on the podcast sometime soon.
Always appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
See you, Patrick. Always a good time having Patrick Garvin on the podcast. And if we're going to be talking about finding screaming deals on used motorcycles, I mean, other than maybe Spencer Robert, I can't imagine anyone better than Patrick to find some odd duck winners like a snow bike for $5,000.
That was incredible. I would also like to say, I love that he called out the clean gauges on that vintage Yamaha you found. He's like, oh, clean gauges. That means it must have been stored inside. That's a very sharp motorcycling mind to notice something like that. Love it. You love to see it. And we love to have Mr. Patrick Garvin on the podcast. That was a lot of fun. Hopefully you got a kick out of it also. Spurge, I've noticed, I've been getting a bunch of emails, maybe you've been getting them too, about how many t-shirts we have around the office, and we should probably just get rid of some, or
let's
at least
give one away
today. What do you think?
Let's give one away to the Apple Podcast review winner. We like to give away t-shirts at High Side, Low Side, and we like to give them to people that help us out. Right now, the number one way you can help us out is to go over to the Apple Podcasts app and leave us a review. It does help to have other people find the show. It helps us make the show better because we do read the reviews. And this review came in from
FK, a nickname?
FK, a nickname.
I think I know what FK, a nickname.
Oh,
mean, but FK, a nickname is where we're going to go.
How dare they? FK, a nickname, says, this show has introduced me to someone even more cynical than myself, 10 out of 10. And Zach, why do we pick FK, a nickname?
Well, a couple of reasons. Mostly, though, if I remember correctly, it's because we're curious which one of us is more cynical than FK, a nickname. I don't know who do you think is more cynical, Spurge? You or me?
Depends on the day, man. Depends on the day. Which one of us is being more sarcastic and asshole-ish depending on the day? I don't know.
Right. Well, maybe FK, a nickname, will appreciate that I made fun of poor Andre, who sent in his Bandit engine sound, and you were like, this is an underappreciated, excellent engine. And you were like, this is a hint from the owner. And I was like, yeah, I can tell it's from the owner.
Yeah. And then I assumed
that's the kind of thing you'd say about your own bike. So
yeah.
I hope I didn't offend you, Andre. And I hope I entertained you, FK, a nickname.
And in Canada, they're clearly not racing for pink slips. They're racing for maple syrup and donuts because that's how we know they roll up there.
Well, anyway, FK, a nickname. We are glad that you appreciate the podcast. We are glad you appreciate our cynicism and sarcasm from time to time. I hope we're picking up on yours correctly. If you can find the optimism in your heart to send us your mailing address and t-shirt size to highsidelowside@RevZilla.com, we will send you a t-shirt.
So, Zach, why don't you take the High Side, Low Side comment of the day? This came in. This is an email from Jack. And Zach, I'll let you get this started.
An email from Jack that Zach's going to read. Jack says, and I quote, I recently moved from Central Virginia, where twisty country roads are plentiful, to Charleston, South Carolina. The roads around coastal South Carolina are very flat and straight, making it far less exciting to ride a sport bike, 1290 Super Duke R from KTM. I assume that's what Jack has, with the intent to lean it over through corners. I am trying to find new ways to enjoy riding on the street where corners are not the goal. This has led me to want a street bike that is just the most mechanically fun or interesting to operate on the road and not necessarily performance oriented. Something that makes rolling through the gears from a stoplight and cruising straight roads interesting by itself. What I'm really looking for is the engine that has the most character to operate. Do you have any suggestions? I'm considering American V Twins, BMW R9T, but I would love to hear any other suggestions. For reference, Jack currently has a 1290 Super Duke R as well as a KTM 250 XCW dirt bike. Spurgeon Dunbar, what do you have to say to Jack?
Jack, you should check out, there's a 2006 BMW R1200S in Greensboro, South Carolina, North Carolina.
It's not that far away. It's only one Carolina north of you.
You could get there. You could get there pretty quickly. And I mean, talk about character out of an engine. That Boxer Twins got it all day long. So
well, and so jokes aside, the engine in Spurgeon's pick there, that R1200S, is essentially the engine that's in the R9T, which you mentioned, Jack. But this is a fun question. Arguably, it's a whole other podcast. But I guess I would say, like, shooting from the hip here, I rode the Moto Guzzi V100 Mandello recently, and to me, that was an interesting bike because it is capable. It's pretty comfortable. It's a nice bike, but really the thing that it does that other bikes don't do is have that, like, Guzzi engine, that like big torquey kind of like agricultural thunderous engine, and you rev it up and pull the clutch in and it clunks into the next gear, and it like really rewards a nice clean downshift, and it rewards being meticulous with your clutch operation. It sounds good. So that's a bike that comes to mind for me, like something like that. Like it's not really a performance. It's not the fastest bike on the block. It's not the most agile, but it is very satisfying to ride from that perspective. That's a bike that comes to mind for me.
I think one of the ones, that I always, I think sometimes in the podcast we get flack for not thinking about American V twins enough. And
100%.
I wrote an article a couple years back around taking Harleys through hill country in Texas. And I found a new appreciation for like a Road King or a Street Glide, just because it helps you slow down a little bit and appreciate what's around you. I think, Jack, you mentioned an American V twin. I think, a Street Glide or a Road King, as you're cruising around in Charleston could work. I would just throw out there too, because let's keep in mind, you're still not horribly far from like some fun weekend trips over into North Carolina or Northern Georgia. And if you had a GS in the garage, you could comfortably cruise around on a straight road, but you could also head up into the curvy mountain roads and still have a good time on a long weekend road trip on some of those roads that you really enjoyed a little bit more from Central Virginia. So if that's the case, well, we are in luck, because Zack has a smoking deal in San Diego, and you can just go out there, buy it, and ride it back across the country.
Ride it home. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'll say two more things to you, Jack. One is that if you're going to get an American V twin, which is a great call out by Spurgeon, don't get a Harley Nightster or a Pan America or one of the sort of like more modern 60-degree liquid cooled higher performance V twins. Get a classic, get like a more classic kind of Harley engine. Same goes with the with like an Indian. I was going to recommend an Indian, I probably wouldn't recommend an Indian FTR 1200, because that's sort of like, you've got an Indian FTR 1200 except a little better in your 1290 Super Duke. You don't need that. What you'd be after more likely would be like a Sport Chief or something with like the big sort of air cooled engine, big lumpy engine. That would be kind of fun. The other thing I'd like to call out really quick is that don't underestimate how much fun you can have on a small bike, even if it's not like tremendously fast. Like revving a bike out and like letting it sing can be kind of fun. And if you don't have curves to go through to sort of light your fire, then like a small bore supermoto or even like naked bike, where you find yourself opening the throttle all the time, you might have fun with that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would recommend a 2006 Triumph Scrambler out in Cherokee,
Nice.
North Carolina, but I want to buy that for myself, and I gotta go home and pitch this Baby Moon idea to my wife. So maybe just hold off on that one for a second, Jack, until I figure out if I actually want to jump on it or not. But I think, joking aside, to Zach's point, looking at something like that, like a little, a parallel twin in the modern classic form, could be a really enjoyable around town motorcycle. I think the problem that you're going to run into with the Super Duke R is you're just never going to feel like you can get out of third gear. And you're probably feeling like it's just way too much, and I can empathize with that. Whereas, to Zach's point, getting something with a little bit less displacement and a little bit more fun to just bop around town on, I'm kind of agreeing with where you're going, Zach and Jack, because it sounds like like Jack had thought about that too with the BMW on his choice list.
Yeah, absolutely. BMW R9T or like any sort of like Triumph Modern Classic, like a T100 or a T120 or something like that. Going to be a satisfying bike to like rev up and click to the next gear, and sort of like, it's going to be rewarding to use mechanically. And I think that's a really astute thing that you've noticed that you want in your motorcycling life, Jack. And I hope you find your next soulmate.
There you go. Well, Jack, thank you for your email. It was very thoughtful. We love the detail you put into it, and we loved the opportunity to help you find your next motorcycle. It is time to wrap things up, which means that if you haven't already done so, leave us a comment on YouTube. Shoot an email over to highsidelowside@RevZilla.com. We want to hear your emails, your thoughts, your comments. Zach and I do our best to look at the emails that producer Chase forwards over to us to read them all, and then we pick our favorites to share with you in the audience. Zach, of all the things that you learned today, what's the most profound takeaway you're going to leave here today with?
Yeah, fair enough. I'm feeling like I could really I'm feeling very buoyed, very like optimistic, very like I feel like I didn't realize I didn't realize my options. I don't know. It's been a while since I shot for a used bike because I don't need a motorcycle, frankly. So I didn't ask myself if I wanted one. And picking around on Craigslist, producer Chase, you have created a monster, my friend. I didn't realize what a lovely garage I could make for that amount of money. It's sort of like, I don't know. It's gotten me excited at the prospect of trying different bikes and owning different bikes at some point. My biggest surprise, my big takeaway here today, I am surprised that Spurgeon Sr. wasn't more revved up about that vintage Yamaha.
The man,
what do you think
the man
deal
does
is?
not
Had you
want
already sent
vintage.
him like 15 links in one day? And
no,
he
this
was
was the only one I sent him. I think
Really?
my dad is very much like the conversation we had with Peter Egan. My dad is past the point of wanting to work on finicky old machines,
see.
right? He doesn't want to
Gotcha.
he doesn't want to try and sync 3 carburetors up on a 45-year-old Yamaha. You know, it's
He's
just
too
not
old
his
and wise
thing.
for
Yeah,
that.
Not his thing.
Sure.
So
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Spurjo, what about you? What's your big takeaway here from season 8, episode 9?
how many amazing motorcycles are out there? Like, so to piggyback off of your piece of
Yeah.
this,
You got the same thing percolating in your brain, don't
there
you?
were so many bikes that I found in the $5,000 range or less, or maybe a little bit more, that I was like, holy hell. And then, I mean, obviously, like the BMW, the R1200S, which I've always kind of wanted to put one in my garage. And I think I just lied to myself. I was like, yeah, I can grab one of those for like $5,000 or $6,000 and have it for a couple of years and enjoy it. And now I'm realizing like it's going to be much more of an investment if I want to play around with one of those for a little while. But for anyone out there that is on the fence about buying their first motorcycle, or is perhaps on the fence about adding a second
Or your
motorcycle
second
to
or
the garage,
third. Yeah, exactly.
like, and maybe trying something a little bit different, the used market is robust. We used Cycle Trader, we used Craigslist, and we used Facebook Marketplace for most of this search. And there's aggregators where you can kind of like punch in the bike and it'll go through and it'll search all the different states and areas for you, and you can find how far you're willing to go to get something.
Right.
But like, dude, there are so many fun used motorcycles out there to try, and you're almost wasting your life away not trying a couple of these different ones that we found. Yeah.
It's like Peter Egan said, life is short. You got to try the bikes and try something and move on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, that's it sounds like we have a similar takeaway, you know, with so many bikes, so little time, basically. And speaking of so little time, we are all out of time here at High Side, Low Side. We do appreciate you hanging out. We hope you had a good time. And I don't know what else, Spurge. I guess we'll see everybody next time, right?
Until next time, thanks for joining us.